Simon says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben. So let me introduce you to today's instructor, Dave Casuto. Dave has 2 master degrees, instructional technologies and organizational psychology. He's trained countless learners face-to-face, but also many others with his online courses. He's created a significant number of courses for us at Simon Says It, including courses for various Adobe products, a number of Microsoft products, including our recent Excel 365 Essentials course, and many more on the way later this year. I'll pass you over now to Dave.
Well, thank you, Ben, and thank you everyone for joining us from every corner of the world. It's always so impressive to see where everyone is coming from. So I'm very excited to usher us into this world of Excel lookups. And the good news is we're going to learn so much more than just lookups, because we really kind of want to give you a sort of full toolbox of all the different tools you need to learn in order to really make your efficient use of lookups. So I'm going to go ahead and start to share my screen so you'll be able to see. So we have these 2 files. We have VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and we also have XLOOKUP. So we're going to go through a number of different examples to kind of really appeal to everybody's sort of types of data set and many different types of circumstances where lookups are going to be valuable and relevant for you.
All right. So if you're ready to go, let's go.
So let me go ahead and just open up the VLOOKUP HLOOKUP file. And we're going to see that we have a number of different tabs on the bottom here. We have our VLOOKUP autofill, VLOOKUP data, etc. So let's just kind of define, first of all, what a VLOOKUP is going to do for us and why we might want to use it. And again, this is just going to be one of several different types of examples that we're going to use. So if we look over here on the left-hand side, we have these kind of IDs and we have some blank spaces here. And on the right-hand side, we have our data that we essentially want to feed into here. Okay, so we know our employee ID, okay, but we don't know, let's say, their name. We don't know their salary, right? We might not know their department, etc. So we're going to look up into this lookup table on the right-hand side based off of the ID. Okay, so we need to use a VLOOKUP for that. Now, the V in VLOOKUP is vertical, right? So we're going down on this list to find everything here, okay? Now, let me go ahead and just show you, first of all, kind of the basics of what our syntax and expression is going to be. So I need to look up this 29002 somewhere over here to find the employee name, okay? So very simply, I'm just going to do an equal sign, starts off every formula. And once I do VL, notice how it just pops right up. And then once it's in blue, I'm just going to hit the tab key. Beautiful. And you'll notice here that it gives us our little IntelliSense kind of clues. We have this VLOOKUP value. What are we looking for? Well, essentially, that's going to be the number that we know, okay, or the value that we know. So as an example, it could be like a customer ID. It could be a social security number. It could be a phone number, something like that, something that's unique and identifiable. So that's the number we know. So very simply, all I do is click on that, right? So then I'm going to hit comma, and it takes me to the next part of my IntelliSense. Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a table array. All that's asking me is saying, hey, where does that whole kind of set of data live, right? Where does my ID live? Where does my employee name live? So all I have to do is highlight everything. Now I'm going to highlight this, and you're going to see I'm going to get the right answer, but I'm going to show you a little bit more of an efficient way of doing this that's going to help us for our next exercise. But let me just show you, first of all, what we're going to do. First of all, I just highlighted everything. And I just did Control Shift and then down arrow and then right arrow to highlight everything, or you can do it manually. Okay, so you can see here what it's got. It's got the whole data set right there. That's where we're going to find the employee name as well as my ID. That's great. Now I go to my next part of my expression, and you can see here is my column index number. Essentially, it's saying, hey, in which column within this array does your employee name live? Okay, and it's a very simple kind of analog way of approaching this, which is just counting, believe it or not. So the column index number in this case is just the second one, because it's the second column of my table array. It's not the second column in the whole thing. I'm not counting from A, I'm counting from E where this starts. Okay, so I'm just going to do a number 2. That's pretty simple. Okay, and then I'm I'm going to do another comma, and then notice how this pops up. We have an approximate match, or we have an exact match. When you're working with like words and letters as opposed to numbers, typically it's going to be an exact match. So I'm going to do now is just double click on false, or I could even just type it out, and there you have it. And now you see there, I have 29002 is Suzanne Farmer. Well, let's just go ahead and confirm that. I'm just going to go ahead and just do a find 29002, and there she is, right? And you're going to see I can look up all of her stuff more or less with the same process. But what I'll do in the next time is I'm going to put in a different column number. Okay, so let's go ahead and head back up to the top here, and we'll go ahead and do the salary one more time so you can see exactly what that's going to look like. All right, so I'll go this time a little bit faster, =, VL. Okay, and my lookup value is pretty much the same exact thing. That's the number I know. That's my qualifier. That's my unique identifier. Okay, so then my lookup array is what? Hopefully you're thinking this through in your head. It's going to be everything over here on the right-hand side. So all I do once again, I'm going to click here. I'm going to do Control-Shift, down arrow, and then right arrow, right? And then I'll come back over here to my formula, and you'll see that for this time, my column index number, because I'm looking up the salary, is going to be what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you see that? So I'm just going to type out 4 because it's the fourth what? The fourth column. Okay, so that's how it's going to know where to look. So essentially, it's a cross-reference between this number and then whatever number you're going to put in the column index. Okay, I'll do one more time, and then this time I can actually type out the word false. No problem there. And now we can see, all right, so Suzanne Farmer, okay, how much is she making? We'll go ahead and just double check that. And there she is making 72,000. Beautiful. Okay, now this could work if you're looking on a data set that's external as well as internal. I'm going to show you something that we can do since this is an autofill, but we're going to see we're going to have a little bit of a problem. Okay, so this is, like I said earlier, we're going to learn not just about VLOOKUP, we're going to learn about other things as well that's going to help our VLOOKUP go a little bit smoother. So let me go ahead now. I'm going to do an autofill for all of these to come down. Okay, so let me just show you now. If I just simply do a double click here, we're going to see that it autofills all the way down. And we're going to see it's going to do the same thing here. Now, you might not realize this, but these numbers are not right. Okay, and let me just show you. If I go into this formula here, I want you to notice how my table array shifts relative to where I have my formula. Okay, let's go ahead and do that one more time. Let's come down to the end here. It shifts relative. Now, if I come all the way down to the bottom, see that? It goes all the way even to empty spaces. Okay, so that might happen to a lot of us if we are planning on doing an autofill for our VLOOKUP. So let me go ahead and talk to you about what's happening and why it's happening and how we can actually solve this. So this is known as a relative reference. Okay, so relative to where it starts, it's going to continue to go on and on just right from there, relative from there. And that's why it continue to go on 10 rows or 20 rows, wherever that starts. So an opposite of that, or the counterpart, is what? It's an absolute reference, which we could do that. But I'm going to show you an even better way, something called named ranges. Okay, so an absolute reference and a named range kind of fall into the same category. But what's neat about a named range is that it allows us to have some kind of label or an identity around it. So therefore, it's going to be very easy to plug it in, but it's also going to be easy for us to identify it. Okay, so let me go ahead and demonstrate that for you. I'm going to get out of everything right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a named range. Okay, and we're going to use this tool several times throughout this exercise. Okay, so all I need to do in order to create a name range is first select the range that I want to be named. Okay, so once again, I'm going to come over to here and I'm just going to highlight everything, right? So Control-Shift, down arrow, and right. And now I have 742 rows. Everything is selected. Beautiful. Now, how do I create a name range? Very simply. Over here in the upper left, I have this thing called the name box. Okay, and all I do is simply click in there and just start typing, right? And I'll just call this employee info, right? Let's see if we got any typos in there. I'll do underscore IFERROR. info, right? Just like that. And by the way, no spaces are allowed inside of name ranges. And then once you finish it, this is very important. A lot of people forget this. You have to hit enter when you're done. That's how we know it's now complete. Now, if I click away and I click back on this little drop down, I now have this employee info name range. And when I click on it, that gets highlighted. Okay, and that's cool. But now let's put it into a formula. We're going to see this not only is going to make it that we can identify what's in there, it's also going to address the idea of this whole relative reference, but it's also going to be way easier to put into our formula. So I'm telling you right now about name ranges because not only this is going to help you with VLOOKUP, but it's also going to help you with all kinds of other different formulas and functions. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it again this time with our name range. So equal sign VLOOKUP and my lookup value, once again, same situation. Now for my table array, instead of me having to go all the way over there and highlighting it and doing all that other stuff, I'm now just going to type out EMP and then notice what appears now. Because I programmed that to happen, that employee info named range now appears. I can just hit the tab key, comma, column index number is what? That's going to be a 2. And then I'll just type out false. And then bam, I get the same thing. Let's go ahead and do the same thing a little bit faster for our salary. We do equal sign, VLOOKUP. Okay, come over to here, A2. Of course, I got to type that in as well. And then here we go, info tab. Okay, and then once again, I'll just type out 4 and then false. And then boom, beautiful. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my autofill. Okay, I'm going to do my autofill going all the way down, boom, from there. And this employee info, notice that's in my formula. I double click here, it's in my formula right there. Okay, now when you do name ranges, the nature by definition, they are already absolute references. And I'm going to show you some back-end stuff around that in a little bit. But just so you know that when you do name ranges, you don't have to worry about absolute reference versus a relative reference and all those situations around it. So let's go ahead now and double click. And now if I come inside the formula, notice how it stays up on top the whole time. See, that'll go to another one. See that? It stays all throughout, keeping the integrity of it from beginning to end. Beautiful. Okay, I'll do the same thing for this guy. And now we're good to go. Okay, so no issues there. And also look how elegant that looks, right? Do you see how when somebody's looking at it, they know exactly what you're referring to. Okay, so it's good for you and it's good for when you are collaborating with others. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some back-end stuff around name ranges. So if I go over to here to a new tab altogether, I'm going to go over to here to my formulas tab, and you'll see that there is something called the name manager right here in the middle. Right? They really want you to use name ranges. So if I click on name manager, you'll see this is it right there. This is where it lives. You can see here refers to what, and you can see how it's referring to E2 through H742. And you'll notice those dollar signs. The dollar signs mean what? Dollar signs mean absolute references. Okay, so that's how we know it's working, and that's why they're kind of counterparts with each other. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another example of how VLOOKUP might work. So in this case, I'm going to be looking up some information that happens to live on another sheet altogether. With this one, right, they were right next door to each other. Okay, but with this one, it might live someplace else. So I'm going to be looking up individually their name, the department, earnings, and regions. Okay, so we go over to here. I have my lookup data right there. Now I'm going to preempt this by just doing a name range right now, because I know that eventually I'm going to be doing a VLOOKUP and I want to make it very easy for me. Okay, so very simply now, I'll go ahead and create my name range right here. So very simply, I'm going to go over here to A2 and then just go down, Control Shift down and right. And then once again, I'm going to go to my name box. You'll see there it is right over there. And I simply click in there and I'll come up with a different name. I'll just call this HR info. Okay. And again, no spaces. You can make it all lowercase. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to put an underscore in there as long as there's no spaces and as long as you remember it. So this whole thing now, you'll see here, now I have 2 name ranges. If I go back to my name manager, you can see I have 2. Okay. Now let's incorporate it into this set of data here. So I need to now look up E001. Well, if we look at this data, we have E001 and all of its respective information. So I'm trying to keep everything confidential. I don't know, their names, anything like that. So I need to look up, based on this number, what their name is, what their department, what their earnings are, etc. Okay, so once again, let's start it off. =, VL, and immediately, as soon as I see it in blue, I'm going to hit the tab key. Beautiful. What's my lookup value? What is the number that I know? Well, it's just right up here. See that? Boom. That's the number I know. And now I'll go ahead and try to find that. I'll just type out HR and look at that. Look what pops right up. Cool. Table array. That is just going to be my HR info, named range, my column index number. Well, I think that was a 2, but I'll see if I get that right or wrong in a second. I'll just type out false. And now you can see that name is Malcolm. So let's go over to here. And yes, it was column 2. And there it is, Malcolm. Okay. Now let's change this number, E001, for a second. Let's see how this kind of machine is going to work for us. I'm now going to type out E007. Okay, I do that, and now you'll notice how it dynamically changes. Okay, that is how our VLOOKUP should work, right? Because it's trying to look up E007 and it's cross-referencing it to find, hey, what's in column 2 of that table array, right? Boom, it does that. Let's do that one more time. Let's do E009. Okay, come over to here, and I'm just looking it up. Boom, and you can see there's Rita. Okay, so it's working pretty flawlessly. All right, so let's go ahead and finish these off. All right, and then actually before I do that, let me just understand, okay, my department is in column 5. So good idea to kind of check that out beforehand. VLOOKUP, what's my lookup value? Same thing, it's the number I know, it's that unique identifier. Okay, my table array, super simple. God, I don't want to have to go all the way over there to do that. Good thing I created a name range. There that is. Hit the tab key for my table array, and then column index number I said earlier was 5, and now I'll just type out false, and now Rita Gregg is in sales. Let's confirm that. Rita Gregg is in sales. Beautiful. Everything is working flawlessly, and then once again, let's go ahead and change that back to E001, and we see that Malcolm is in human resources. Go E007. Melissa James is in accounts. See how we're creating this cool little machine for us. All right, I'll go ahead and finish these off. And if you're following along, I encourage you to also continue doing this as well as I'm doing. That's why I've given us enough examples for everybody to really give this a try. Because that really is how the brain appreciates learning, to really do it. Watching is one part of it, but really doing it is really where it starts to stick. All right, so I'll go quietly as you practice as well for each of these. And if you haven't created a name range, by the way, it's totally okay. You can highlight it manually still. You don't have to have the name range. All right, by the time you finish, it should look like this. And certainly, I could format this if I wanted to make this in dollars. It's not going to affect the formula at all. And you can see there that is. Beautiful. I love that. Now, before we go on to another VLOOKUP lesson, I want to show you another little sidebar that might help you out for something like this. Because if you notice, I kept having to kind of switch over E007 to E002, and then I do that. And I was like, okay, great, let's go to E003. I have to double click in there. And that's a little tedious, right? I see that it works. That's great. But what I'm going to show you now is a nice sort of partner that works very well with this type of lookup. And we're going to learn about data validation. I'm going to show you how you can create a drop-down menu to make it so you can have every single one of these available, meaning every single one of your employee IDs available in a drop-down to make it quick and easy for you just to kind of change them. Again, we're trying to create like an automated machine for ourselves, okay? So first of all, I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, right? And you're going to see that, uh-oh, things are going to get a little wonky. It's like, oh, wait a second. I was looking up something in here. Can't find it anymore. Okay, no big deal. We're going to change this now. So again, we're going to do something called data validation. All right, so let's go ahead and click on B5 And I'm going to go to my data tab this time, right? So here's data up on top here. And then over here on the right-hand side, kind of sandwiched between all these little funny icons, there is my data validation. I'm going to simply click on that. And you'll notice here I'll have these 3 tabs up on top. We'll focus mostly just on the settings tab for right now. And then you'll see here that I have something called validation criteria. And what kind of validation criteria am I going to allow? Well, validation criteria essentially is saying, hey, it's only this type of data that I'm going to see as valid. And in this case, my valid criteria is going to be whatever's inside of a dropdown. So if I click on this dropdown under allow, I don't care about whole numbers or decimals. For me, it's really about a list I'm about to create. So I choose that. And now it's asking me very simply, well, what is going to be your list? Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 ways you can do this. Number 1, I'm just going to highlight everything, right? So boom, I'm just going to go ahead and go over here to source. My little box is going to start blinking. I'm going to come back over to here. And now I'm going to highlight everything. See that? And that's what's going to be inside there. Okay, and you can see there it is. Beautiful. Okay, and then I'm going to click OK. Now, when I click on my cell, you'll see that I have this beautiful little drop down here. Okay, and let's just go ahead and test it out. E007, boom, that comes right up. How about E11? Okay, great. Paul Anderson, oh my God, I'm really cooking. You see how fast and easy that is, and way slicker, way easier to do. So that is how you create a very simple drop-down menu using data validation, connecting to data that already exists, right? So if we go back to that one more time, we'll see what we have here. Okay, so you can see how I have allow list, and then my source is going to be that A2 through A41. Let me go ahead and do it in a slightly different way this time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear that out, and I'm going to this time show you another variation of how you can do it using named ranges. So you can totally do it this way. There's no right or wrong here, but I want you to kind of really see the value of named ranges. I'm going to go back over to here this time, right, to my lookup value. And guess what? I'm going to make all of these from A2 all the way down into a named range. Okay, so let's go ahead and highlight everything. It's going to be all of my employee IDs. And I'm just going to go ahead and make this a named range. So I go over to here and I'll just call this M dropdown. Okay, call again whatever you want, but I'm just going to copy that to be safe. No typos. And now I hit enter, and that becomes another named range, right? And you can see, boom, there it is, it's added to it. Now, let's go ahead and see another use for named ranges, now with dropdowns. So I click over to here, and this time I'm going to go to my little data validation. Once again, I go over to here, to list, and then notice for my source, instead of going to highlight everything, I'm just going to do equal sign, and then the name of my named range, right? See that? Watch this. I click OK, and now guess what's in there? How slick is that? It's another way to do name ranges and see them in action.
Hi, from everyone at Simon Says It. We hope you're enjoying this training lesson. Please like this video to show your support for the channel. If you want to take your learning further, earn a certificate for this course, and gain access to over 200 courses ad-free, click up there and go to simonsaysit.com. Thanks for watching, and back to the course.
All right, now let's go over to here to this VLOOKUP grades. All right, and sorry this is bringing up any trauma for anybody, going back to the high school days. But what we're going to do now is we're going to do a different variation on VLOOKUP. Okay, and early, if you remember how I did VLOOKUP and I put false at the end, in this case, we're going to be doing VLOOKUP with a true. Okay, so remember false was going to be an exact match, where true is going to be an approximate match. Okay, so let's look at this. So we have this lookup table here, and we have, if somebody gets a 65, right, on their test, they get a D. Okay, if they get a 70, they get a C. If they get an 80, they get a B, etc. But what if they get a 74? What do we do then, right? We need to create some type of lookup that says, hey, listen, if they get this particular grade score, right? What grade letter do we give them? So the way that it works is we need to tell VLOOKUP that it's going to be an approximate match because there's not an exact match for this range of data. And we're going to look at two different examples of this in this case, and we're looking at another example someplace else here. So let's go ahead. Again, it's going to be VLOOKUP. And you know what I'm going to do before I go any further? I'm going to make this into a name range. Why not? So I'm going to go and highlight my data here, and then I'll just call this grades. Pretty simple. Hit enter. Beautiful. Now I'm going to do equal sign, VLOOKUP. Okay, and what's my lookup value? It's going to be whatever's in B2. That's the number we know, right? That's going to be feeding into this. Okay, my table array, I just created it 10 seconds ago. Do I want to highlight everything again? Nope, I can just type out grade, right? Boom, that comes up. And now what am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for my grade letter in this case. So what number is that? It's very simply just a 2, right? Again, we're not counting over from the far left. We're counting from our table array. So it's just going to be a 2. And now here is where things get a little different, where we're going to say not exact match. We're going to do an approximate match. Okay, so I'll double click on 2, and then I hit enter, and then boom, 89 is a B. Okay, but what if this person, right, did some extra credit and she came in and now she has a 95? Look at that. Her grade goes to an A. See that? Because it leaps over there. But let's go ahead and do one of those like vague things, right? Let's just say we find out that those were not her grades somehow, right? So now let's give her a 78. And now you can see is somewhere in between there. That was that vagary. So that's how it works. It kind of like falls down to like the lowest one. And we're going to see one that has to do with actual numbers in the sales environment in just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm good to go because now all I need to do is do my autofill going straight down like that. And we can verify that everything works beautifully and perfectly. See that? Love that. So I'll go ahead and just bring that up for you in case you want to try that out yourself. And again, understand that the major distinction that we've done here is saying true because it's an approximate match. Okay, let's go ahead and do that again for our status. That's going to be basically pass or fail, VLOOKUP, and then once again, what's the number we know? That's going to be our lookup value. Table array, it's going to be grades. Beautiful. Column index number, say it with me, 1, 2, and 3. See that? Okay, and then I'll just type out true this time. Beautiful. Okay, and yes, Abby, you did pass. And who did not pass, we can see here, is Roberts and Henderson because their grade is below 60. That's one example of how we're going to use the approximate match. Let's look at it in maybe a more sort of like numbers oriented kind of perspective. So once again, I'm going to start off making a name range. All right, but let's go ahead and take a look at this data. All right, let's just say we are in charge of, sales for a retail shop, and we want to know how much discount to give people. Okay, so if they spend $750, you can see that they will get a 2% discount. If they spend $10,000, they're going to get a 20% discount, etc. But what if there's some vagary? Once again, what if they spend $525, right? Where do we go with that? What if they spend $10,003? Where do they go? Or $9,999? Where do we go from that? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create, first of all, our name range, and we're going to figure out how we can do this. And you're going to see it's going to be very similar to what we have before. So I'm going to highlight everything, create my name range. Great, that's all set up. And again, we're trying to do an approximate match for this. So I'm going to do equal sign, VLOOKUP, and once again, what's the number I know? What's my lookup value? What's dictating it? And then I'm going to say my table array. I just created it, and notice there it is, discount. That's easy. That's why we use name ranges. Okay, and my column index number. Well, what's going to be feeding into this? What number column? 1 and 2. Love that. Okay, I'll just very easily now type out true. And now we get that 2%. And now if I change this to 1,000, that jumps up to 3%. Let's go to 2,000. And naturally that jumps up to 10%. But once again, we've got some vagaries here. Whoever spends that exact amount, right? Very seldom that's going to happen. So if I do 4,900, you'll see that's not on any of these numbers, right? But you can see it's 12%. So you might say to them, hey, wait a second, if you spend another $100, right, you're going to get a 3% discount. Oh, great. So I'll go ahead and just do 5,000 and notice how that jumps up. So hopefully you see how that works when you are doing lookups and you have exact matches versus approximate matches, which ones you want to use at different times. So we've got kind of a big full toolbox of all the different kind of elements we might want to use, including our named ranges, working with absolute references possibly, and also earlier we talked about doing data validation. Let's say, for example, we have errors, okay? So sometimes, let's say, like you're looking up somebody, types in an employee that doesn't exist, right? This employee ID number, you're gonna have errors, right? You see this, like, oh, wait a second, or maybe that person doesn't work there anymore. Something like that, we're gonna have these errors. So what we're gonna learn now is how to do an if-error nested function with VLOOKUP, right? It's a nested function. We're going to be looking at the VLOOKUP that we've already been creating, but we're also going to combine it with an if-error function, okay? Because if there's an error in our VLOOKUP, we want it to yield some type of message, for example, okay? So once again, I'm going to go ahead and just make this all into a name range, okay? And I'll just one HR2, do underscore so we can see it clearly. Okay, so that's my name range for all this data here. And I'm going to just do, very simply, I'll do my VLOOKUP again. Okay, I'm going to do equal sign, VLOOKUP. Okay, and then once again, same process we did before. Okay, and then we'll do HR2 this time. Okay, my column index number, I'm looking for the name. So I count over 1, 2, same situation. I'll do false. Okay, and now you'll see I have an error. Why do I have an error? Because this employee ID, right, there was a typo there, or maybe that person doesn't work there anymore. So I can easily fix that, and you see the right one comes in. But what I want to do is I want to actually kind of have some messaging. I want to have some type of, interactivity and communication from the machine when there's an error that's not that ugly NA kind of nonsense, right? I want it to actually show a message, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to keep this so it was before. Okay, so I'm going to double click to get back into my formula. Okay, and I'm going to do a nested function of an if error. Okay, so if there's an error in this VLOOKUP, so think about a nested function as like a sandwich, right? How like you have like 2 pieces of bread and in the middle, whatever you're going to put inside your sandwich. Okay, so I'm just going to go right to the outside of my VLOOKUP, right there. I don't know if you can see where I am. Right in there, right in between the equal sign and the actual formula. Okay, and I'm just going to type out if, and then notice how when if error appears, it highlights in blue, I'm just going to hit the tab key. And then notice how easy that makes it, right? How it automatically puts it into caps, it puts in another open parentheses for me. That's beautiful. Okay, so I have an if error. So this is this one piece of bread right there. Okay, great. And now this is my meat, right? You can see, now I go to the outside. Okay, and I have part of my IntelliSense is, well, if there is an error in whatever this value is, and this value just happens to be the VLOOKUP, what do you want to kind of yield? So I'm just going to say no employee found. Okay, and notice I'm putting into quotes. I close it out and I hit enter, and you can see beautiful. Notice how nicely that looks. And I'll go ahead and do another one. Boom, and that's going to change. I'll go ahead and put another one here. Uh-oh, no employee found. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep messing up with these. Okay, great. Okay, now I'm getting it right. Okay, so if we take a look at this one more time, let's go ahead and look at our sandwich. I have if error, and then I have the other piece of the bread here. So the if error is one piece of bread. This is another piece of the bread. And then this is going to be the middle of your sandwich right there. Okay, our original VLOOKUP. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that for these guys. And by the way, I can start off with my if error right now if I wanted to. I don't have to do it in any order. I can do if error right now, and then start doing my VLOOKUP right there. See, so you can do it really in any order. I just wanted to start off with something that you kind of already knew. So I'll just go ahead and do it again. Here is my lookup value, table array, right? That's going to be HR2. And then my column index number is just department 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, false. Okay, and now guess what? I'm on the other side of that piece of bread. Okay, and remember in quotes, this is very important when it's a text element there, text argument, you need to actually put that in quotes. Okay, so no employee found, and then end my quote, end my parentheses. Boom, Shannon is in fact inside accounts. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and test this out. And I'll do another error. Happy with my W's, always coming up. Boom, no employee found. And I'll go ahead and do one more just to be a little fast about it. Okay, and then continue on. VLOOKUP. What's my lookup value? Table array, HR2, column index number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because it's the 6th column. False, as we know. Now I'm on the other side for value of error. No employee. Close out my parentheses. And there we have it. And let's test it out one more time. I'll just do some crazy one there. Boom, no employee found for all of these. HLOOKUP is the counterpart to a VLOOKUP. So the HLOOKUP is a horizontal as opposed to vertical. So in this case, we're going to be, instead of looking at the column index number, we're going to be looking at the row index number. So good examples, or like good sort of use cases for this, is when you have your columns and the header of the column is your unique value, right? Because my unique value to kind of search down below here is my quarters, right? So notice this is going to be my lookup value. It could also be like months of the year. It could be potentially like, you know, clients, products, you know, something like that. And that's how you set your data up. Okay, so I don't want to say they're not competitors with each other, right? It all depends on how your data is set up. Okay, so HLOOKUP isn't used as often, not because people think it has like less, you know, it has its inferior to it. It's just that they don't know about it. They don't understand the practicality of it in the application. Let's see what this is going to look like now. So I'm going to be looking up whatever is in Q1, and I want to look up the gross profit. I want to look up the net profit. I want to look at the percentage profit. And notice I have those labels here. So let's go ahead and do =HLOOKUP. Actually, you know what? What should I do? A named range here. Okay, so I'll just call this one profit. I need to have my named range actually built out. So this is included here. So my numbers here were not included. So I started off too early. So this is a great example of how now I could adjust my named range. Okay, let's pretend I did that on purpose. So let's now go back to my name manager. Okay, just like how I did in formula. And I'm going to go back to profit. And this time I'm going to edit it. Okay, and I'm going to start off with a 7, right? You see there? Okay, and now my name range should be the whole thing. Let's go ahead and test it out now. Okay, boom. Okay, because the problem was when I did my named range, I didn't actually highlight the values that should be shown up there. Okay, so again, I totally did that on purpose. So now we can see it comes up with 25,000. Let's do that again. Now that we have our name range all set up, so I'm going to do =HLOOKUP. Beautiful. Lookup value, same situation. My table array, once again, is profit. Okay, and that should show up nicely. Good, it highlights everything. My row index number, it's my net profit. So I'm going to start from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and now type out false. And now beautiful. If we look at Q1, net profit is 10,500. So if I click here, notice I have a dropdown already locked and loaded, because you can see how dropdowns can work just as well with another context. So let's go ahead and look at Q4. All right, and if we verify, we're going to see here Q4 for my gross profit is going to be 60,000. All right, I need to update these. My apologies, because this is now going to be 4. And this is going to be 9. That was right. Okay, great. Now everything's looking fine. All right, so Q4, 30,800. And then my net profit is 24,080. Now let's go ahead and do it one more time. HLOOKUP, my lookup value, same situation. Table array, profit, beautiful, everything's there. And then my row index number, 4% profit, should be 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. False. And now 26% for quarter 4. That looks beautiful. And we'll do one more just to validate here for total. Beautiful. There's 25% net profit. We'll see for total is, and then 122, and beautiful. Everything works flawlessly. Okay. So again, what's the distinction? We have our column headings as our unique identifiers. That's the main difference there. So why was XLOOKUP even invented? Well, there are some limitations to when we are working with, let's say, VLOOKUP. I want you to notice something special about this data set here, okay? That the unique identifier that we're working with here happens to be in the 4th column. If we go back over here to our original VLOOKUP, notice our identifier is in the far left column. VLOOKUP, I'm going to say this very slowly and clearly so you really get this. VLOOKUP can only look up values that are in the far left-hand corner. So when a lot of people are working with VLOOKUP, they're like, oh, wait a second, I only know VLOOKUP. So if my IDs are in the 4th column, I just got to move everything over. And that could be a bit of a challenge, right? That can be a bit of a chore. So that's where XLOOKUPs comes in, okay? So we're going to see that there is a number of different kind of benefits to working with XLOOKUP, but certainly use whichever ones you prefer. Okay, and absolutely we could use named ranges here, but just for the interest of time, I'm just going to do it without a named range so you can see what it's going to look like. And we'll also notice that there is the if error option that's built right into it, right? That we don't have to do an if error. Okay, so let me go ahead and deconstruct what we're looking at. Already, this is already complete. Okay, so if we go over to here to my XLOOKUP, right? We'll see my IntelliSense. My lookup value, yes, it's the number I know. That's great. And then it's broken down into a different set of arguments. My lookup array is essentially saying, where can I find G2, right? Where can I find all this cast of characters? And notice all of these ID numbers live inside here, right? So we're just saying it's somewhere in column D. We don't really know. Then we have what's known as our return array. Well, what are we looking for? What do we want to return as a result, right? Where does that live? Oh, that lives somewhere over here in column A because I'm looking for the employee name. Okay, pretty simple. And then finally, if not found, is the equivalent of your if error, right? So they make it nice and easy for you, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll do it a few times. And again, I want to give you a chance to practice. So I'm going to do XLOOKUP, not a VLOOKUP, not an HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. Now, it starts off once again with my lookup value. I choose that, G3, that's my lookup value. And then I hit comma, and immediately it takes me to the lookup array, which I kind of like the way that they phrase that too. It's like, where can I find all of his buddies, right? It's okay, somewhere inside of column D. And again, this could absolutely be a named range. We're not going to do it right now, but 100% this could be a named range. But because I did the whole column, that could actually allow me to do an autofill. Okay, and now my return array. Well, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the employee name. So once again, I go over to here to column A. I select the whole column. Beautiful. And I could stop right now, by the way. Okay, I could be done and don't have to worry about an if error because I just want you to notice how everything that's on the right-hand side, they're all in hard brackets. So you might not really care about those. It's not relevant for you. It's too advanced and just doesn't matter. You can ignore it and then you can be done with the formula. But I do want to put in an if error kind of message there. I go to comma and then notice that it says if not found is highlighted. Again, it's in brackets because it's optional. And I'm just going to say no data. Okay. And then I close it out. All right. And now we can see there's Denise King. All right, and we can go looking for her. I'll go ahead and just find that just to verify. 29545. Okay, and then there she is, Denise. So it's found this number, and it is then looked up her name based off of that. So we see it works flawlessly. Let me go and do that one more time. I'll go a little faster. It's my lookup value. This guy again, beautiful. My lookup array. Well, what am I looking it up? I'm looking it up somewhere in column D. right? And my return array, what am I looking for? Somewhere inside of column A, and then close it out. And now, beautiful. And there's no data for this one, right? It's like, oh, wait a second. 3322. Oh, you know what? I guess, yeah, that person doesn't work here anymore. Oh, you know what? I think it's actually a different number. So I'm going to type out 11652, right? But I can at least see that this is working. That's great. So my if error little notification is in fact effective. So you know what? It's actually 11652, and we can see, beautiful, that is in fact Ernest Haynes. Okay, so it works awesome. Super happy with that. Let's go ahead and just drag this down. And now you can see beautifully. Love that. All right, I'll do one more. Go a little faster this time. XLOOKUP. This time, I'm looking it up by the social security number. Okay, so I find that. Go to here, my lookup array. Where am I looking it up? Boom, it's going to live somewhere in there, right? My social security numbers live inside SSN. That makes sense. A return array, what am I looking for? I'm finding out how much they make based off of the social security number that I know. So very simply, I choose the column heading, and then I'm at if not found. Okay, great. And again, I could do my autofill, and that speaks to everybody across the board here. And I'm going to finish this off by just doing one last thing so you can see one additional benefit of how we can work with XLOOKUP. Okay, so this is known, it's maybe a little bit more advanced for some of us, but this is known as an array. Okay, so an array is a huge time saver because it allows us to kind of just do a swath of what our formula is going to be for several different cells rather than just one. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do now. I'm going to highlight everything, and I'm just going to start typing. I know it seems weird, but I'm just going to start typing even after I've highlighted everything. I'm going to do XLOOKUP, just like that. Beautiful. And then I'm just going to go over to what's my lookup value, right? There it is right there. That's beautiful. Okay, and then my lookup array is, okay, well, where am I going to find all these guys, right? There's going to be somewhere living over here, just like we just did earlier. Now, here comes the fun part, is when we say what our return array is going to be, since we want to do kind of one big wide swath of all of these, we have to highlight everything what we want, right? And Excel's getting very excited because it's about to save you a ton of time. Okay, let's wait for it. And now, can you see how I just did all of those, right? All 5 rows. And then I'm going to just go ahead and say no data found. Close that out. And now notice what just happened. I put it into one cell, but because it's an array function, it actually popped it all out to all of them. Okay. And not only that, if I were to now change this to give it an error, let's do our good old W right there. Watch this. Boom, no data found for all of them. Oh, let's fix that. Let's go and do 007. Boom, they all come in from one cell. So XLOOKUP allows you to do an array function as well. And it started off with me highlighting all of the cells and just typing. And I left here for you a little cheat sheet so you can see exactly what to type in.
Well, congratulations everyone for completing this course. So hope you enjoyed this class, hope you learned a lot, and we look forward to seeing you in future lessons. Thanks everyone.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.